Good evening, everyone. I'm Meg from the marketing team of Elsevier India. I welcome you all to the webinar on how to study anatomy tips and tricks. I, with my colleague Priyanka, would be moderating today's session. Before we start, I would like to lay out some ground rules. All of you would be on mute automatically. So in case if there is any questions or any queries that you want to ask from the speaker, please put them in the Q&A tab. You can see the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. If you're using a phone, then you will see it at the top of your screen. Secondly, during this session, the speakers would be asking you a few questions. Please put your answers in the chat box only. At the moment, the chat box is disabled. You would open the chat box as and when the speakers ask you the questions. Thirdly, our team would try their best to address your queries and concerns throughout the session. Please know that all your questions would be answered by the speaker during the Q&A session that will be held towards the end of the webinar. I would like to reiterate that if you have any queries or questions during the session, then please put it in the Q&A box. To take up this session today, we have two speakers, one with an experience and a journey of 8 years, and the other as fresh as 3 years. Both have their own experiences to share as they have carved a niche for themselves. Welcoming our first speaker, Dr. Sushruth Ingawale, presently working as a junior resident in general medicine for King Edward Memorial Hospital, Mumbai. He completed his graduation in the year 2017 from St. G.S. Medical College, Mumbai. Sushruth has been associated with us since the year 2016, where he joined the Elsevier Student Ambassador Program. He was also a winner of our Elsevier Basic Sciences Olympiad into 2014, followed by being a quiz master for the Olympiad in the year 2017 and 2018. He has proven to be a treasure for Elsevier in many but one way. Sushruth has also been a speaker at various workshops like time management for the first year MBBS students, basic life support BLS training, basics of mechanical ventilation, and toppers conclave, to name a few. He was also nominated for the Best Student of the University Award in 2017 and has bagged various scholarships like JRD Tata Scholarship, Narottam Seksaria Foundation Scholarship, Dr. Sanjeev J. Godke Scholarship, to name a few. Moving on to our next speaker, Gurudat Tyagi, who's currently a third-year student of National Institute of Medical Sciences and Research, Jaipur. He is also a current year student ambassador with us and has proved his mettle many a times during the course of the program. Gurudat holds the position of being a president of Academics, Research and Innovation Club and a student representative for Student Welfare Committee at NIMS University. He has also been a gold medalist in first and second professional year with distinction in all the subjects. By becoming a member of curriculum committee established for the new competency-based medical education, he has added another feather in his hat. Gurudat has good oration skills and has been a speaker and an anchor at various occasions. Apart from this, he is an avid reader and also enjoys cooking and writing. I welcome both the speakers to the session. I'm sure the attendees are looking forward to hear out from you. So over to you both.
Thank you, Meg, for your elaborate introduction. Good evening, everyone. So the next 45 minutes are going to be very crucial. So I insist our participants to pay full attention and ask all the questions later in the Q&A session. So let me begin by quoting one of my anatomy professors who used to say this repeatedly: your eyes cannot see what your mind does not know. It takes some time to understand the truth of this statement and how to apply it for anatomy. Anatomy, is not a subject like maths where you learn some basic axioms and laws and then just everything falls into logic. Instead, it is a very vast subject, a subject that gives nightmares to students. A first MBBS student is more afraid of failing in anatomy than any other two subjects. So I myself consider anatomy to be the easiest and also my favorite. Why? Because it should be studied like geography. It is like going on a treasure hunt. All you need to know is two secrets to crack this. First is to know your landmarks. That is, you need not know anatomy of everything, but only you need to know the important ones. And here we tackle the vocabulary, the name of muscles, bones, which students find difficult to remember. The second secret is creating a mind palace. That is, you need to reproduce the map in your brain. You need to visualize the anatomy so that you can understand the relations, anterior, posterior, medial, lateral, etc. So just to start with, we will be covering how to do in all the subsequent slides. But first, I want to start with how to read a book. Yeah. So the things that you need to remember is first need not always be from chapter 1, because instead of going to lectures according to the textbook, you need to go according to the lecture schedule of your college, because the features and the lectures are scheduled as per the dissection. Next point is that first reading should always be the longest one. That is, take time to understand the meaning. Don't worry about remembering the first reading itself. Invest your time putting filters, which I'm going to talk about soon, and you start to remember things from the second reading, and for the subsequent readings are just for the revision. Another thing is always correlate with lectures. And now we talk about the three type of filters that are to be applied. The three filters are underline, highlight, and bulk marking. So this is anatomy for parotid gland, and let's have a look at vascular supply of parotid. So if you can see, the arterial blood supply is denoted by red color underline, while blue denotes the venous drainage, black denotes the lymphatic or nervous supply. So this is what I call differential underlining. The next time I'm going to the same page, I will read only the text that is underlined. So just imagine how much time that you are going to save in your second reading, and more time you are creating for subsequent revisions. And this is going to help you in your viva. The second filter that I use is highlighting. Some people prefer to highlight instead of underlining, but I myself feel that highlight should be reserved only for keywords, eponyms, clinical syndromes, and exceptions. Like here in this case, you can see Fraze syndrome is highlighted because these words are something that are going to be framed in MCQs and will be asked in quizzes. The third filter that I apply is that of bulk marking. Suppose you are to remember the structures forming the stomach bed, or you have to remember the list of blood vessels and nerves. There is no need to underline or highlight everything. Just put a big tick mark and say read whole. These questions are usually asked in theory. So three simple filters: underline for viva, highlighting for MCQ and quizzes, and bulk marking for theory questions. Keep this approach as a medical student for all the textbooks you are going to read. Now let's have a look at some do's and don'ts of gross anatomy. So the first do is read on the same day. Try to complete reading whatever has been taught on that day itself, because once you lose the synchronicity between your dissection and your book reading, both of them are going to be useless. Going hand in hand is very important. Hence, on anatomy days, study only anatomy and don't sleep until you finish it. Second do is try to visualize. Try to visualize the structure that you are just trying to remember theoretically. Creating a mind palace is the technique used by the people who can answer any anatomy question asked randomly. So pay better attention to dissection, use videos, use atlases. Third is discuss with your friends. Discussion is the most fruitful for reading bones, as you may have to share a skeleton set. You can ask each other questions on origins and insertions of muscle. And I think this is the best way to study bones. For other topics, you may prefer reading individually along with the atlas and videos. And a point of caution is that whenever the discussion group is formed, it should not preferably include more than 3 people. The fourth point that I want to give is give enough time and attention to applied and clinical anatomy. It is important, especially for quizzes. Next is that demonstration helps better. Writing is better than reading, and doing something is even more better than writing. And anatomy can be a bit boring sometimes. That is why I would really recommend these visually and interactive sources to you, like videos of dissection, videos of bones, Viva Voce videos. Most of these videos you will find on YouTube. You can also have flashcards for revision and good atlas. That is something that you need to use. There are some don'ts in anatomy. So the first don't is that knowing every detail. Don't try to mug up each and every detail. You will end up knowing nothing. Second don't is avoid making self notes. Anatomy is a vast subject. Too much information to concise. So rather do apply the filters that I've told, underline, highlight, bulk marking, and your notes are ready. Third is don't try to read all books. Select just one book and read it multiple times. Photographic memory works. Fourth don't is not revising. It is going to be a huge loss to you. Repetition of the same topic in lecture, then in dissection, and then in demonstration lectures, and then self-reading will literally consolidate these things by the end of the day. So revision is a must. And lastly, don't panic because you're not able to remember things in first 2 months of your first MBBS, because it takes time to get used to Latin and Greek vocabulary. Getting to the roots. So now to master the names in anatomy, you need to master your Greek and Latin words along with their meanings. This is for that you need to go to the root of the word. Just have a look at some examples. So the first example is abductor, digiti minimi. Abductor is to move away, digiti refers to finger, and minimi means little. So if you are asked in Latin and the question says, what will you call a muscle that moves the little finger away? And the examiner says, answer in Latin. Your answer would be mus abductor digiti minimi manus. Simply abductor digiti minimi. Or another example, if you are asked in Viva to show a muscle, latissimus dorsi. So how can you do it? Dorsi means back and latissimus means broadest. All you have to do is point out at the broadest muscle of the back and your examiner will be happy. Another thing is get the similar words. Example is diminutives. Os refers to longer bone, while like example is os femur, while ossicles refer to smaller bones like the ear ossicles. Similarly, we have organ uterus and we have utricle in the internal ear. So my question to you is, what would be the diminutive of the word anus? I request you to type the answers in the chat box. We have one response, annular. Any other responses? Limbus, angular. No. Fine. It's annulus. Harsh Marathe has answered it first. The question answer would be annulus. So anus will be annulus. So if you get these words, it is easier for you to learn the gross anatomy. Next thing is you have to focus on dissection. You need to do it sincerely. There is no escape from that despite the smell of formalin. In fact, I would say consider yourself lucky to get to do the dissection, because there are schools around the world where students have to learn anatomy from already dissected and lab preserved specimens. So yes, you are lucky. Again, use a good dissection guidebook and move on to different tables, because the same organ has its slight anatomical variations in different people. So some group may get a fat cadaver for dissection. Other group may get a very lean female for dissection. So there are anatomical variations in the organ itself. So it is okay if you go around different tables and discuss with your friends. And apart from dissection, always and always prefer to use an atlas along with your textbook, because the second secret to crack gross anatomy is to visualize it in your mind, sort of creating a mind palace. So this is it for gross anatomy. Let's move on to general anat. General anat, is a very small topic. The book is so small that I really recommend it to you to finish it over a weekend and focus only on the important topics like muscle, joints, bones, and their types. This topic will help you understand why a particular muscle or a joint functions the way it should, the orientation of the muscle fibers, the joint that acts as a fulcrum, etc. So it will be easier for you once you learn the function, you will understand how to remember the actions of the muscles. Next is clinical anatomy. It is cherry on the cake. Sometimes we wonder, why do I have to remember the course of the radial nerve? So, but once you learn about the injuries of radial nerve at different levels, it becomes even more easier to remember the course of this nerve. And moreover, when you ask the question why, this is the way you develop a clinical approach. But yes, a word of caution, don't get too much into depth of having clinical knowledge. You have a time in subsequent years to go for it. So to conclude, both these short topics are going to boost your understanding of the gross anatomy. Now let's talk about neuroanatomy. The do's for neuroanatomy are: start with embryology. Directly understanding the human brain might be a bit difficult. Rather, if you start from the basic and understand how along the evolution of animals the human brain has developed, it will be a better understanding to a neuroanatomy and the structure of human brain. Second do is that skip the initial few chapters, because they will have an overlap with physiology like neuronal synapses, neurotransmitters, and types of neurons, etc. Third is special attention to practice diagrams. Like brain anatomy is something that you are going to need to know at any point of career. Imagine that you are sitting in an emergency department and a patient comes to you with acute onset weakness of right half of the body. You get a CT done urgently, but to read those films, you do not have a radiologist. But just if you know the neuroanat, it's very easy to figure out the site of the infarct. You cannot always wait for the radiologist, telling from my experiences. Sections of the brain, be a master of it. You need to know them in and out at any point of time, maybe sagittal sections, coronal sections, or transverse sections. What are the don'ts? Don't read from page to page. Focus on the clinically relevant stuff. Don't miss the dissection, especially for cranial nerves. If you miss it, it is sometimes difficult to understand even from the atlas. Third don't is, don't go too deep into the circuits and pathways. You are expected to know just the basics. You have ample of time in coming years to study the same in pharmacology, medicine, and neurology. After all, human brain is complex that it would take a lifetime to understand it. There are two YouTube channels which I do recommend to you. First is ECCLES Health Sciences Library by University of Utah, and second is Vivavo's Anatomy. Both the channels have a concise manner of revising already dissected specimens. Third recommendation is that of a site known as WebPath. This you will be using in subsequent years for pathology slides next year, but it has a section of neuroanatomy as well. And fourth recommendation is Medicopias, which is a YouTube channel by Gurudutt, has a series of videos on neuroanat and histology. So now I hand over to Gurudutt to cover other small topics.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sushruth Bose. It's my pleasure to join you on this webinar. And good evening to one and all present in this webinar. First of all, I would like to thank Team Elsevier for selecting us and giving this opportunity to present the webinar. So I'm talking about embryology now, tips and tricks. The field of focus in the embryology is three things: you have to focus on general terminologies, diagrams, and flow charts. What is important, as you know, in embryology, you have to approach the topic wise. Theory is required only in few topics. You don't have to study theory for every topic. Like the topic is rotation of gut. There you need theory sometimes, like stages of rotation. For that you need to study the theory, but not for every topic. Most of the topics just require the diagrams and flow charts only. You will learn whole process by them. Uh, Another important aspect of embryology is the terms, the terms which are used in the diagrams. What the students feels tough is they don't even understand the terminologies of the embryology. What is cranial, what is caudal, what is rostral. I'll be presenting an example of the word tube, like it's written neural tube. So when you see in your house also, there is water tube, water pipe you call it. So that pipe has a solid mass outside it and a hollow cavity in between. So similarly, you people can see in embryology that whenever this neural tube will develop, it is something which is going to form some nervous tissue, as neural word is coming and the tube word is coming. So there might be some soft tissue mass around a hollow cavity. Why is this hollow cavity required? As you know, in brain, you can see in brain there are spaces for the CSF, ventricles we call them. So basically everything is linked to our real life also, and these terminologies, when you link it with real life, when you link it with the embryology terms and then link it with the diagram, you'll come to know that these things are easy. Make your own conceptual tricks as you have to do in anatomy, otherwise it's stratification. Then simplified and reliable diagrams. You can search thousands of diagrams on Google, but it's not valid. Just like you cannot treat a patient with Google. So learn general embryology before systemic every time. Even for histology also, whenever you are going to study something about systemic, you have to first know its general, because general is the basic. So in general embryology, when you come to know what is foregut, what is hindgut, what is midgut, what is white and low intestinal duct, then only you will know the derivatives, the derivations of there in the systemic embryology. How to study and learn, it's a stepwise approach. These are 5 points. It is just like a flow chart. You have to follow the series and don't have to skip any one of them. First of all, know what to form. You should know what to form. Like I assume I have to form brain. So what to form? Brain. Recall its gross structure. Now I'm recalling its gross structure in my mind. Brain is having fore, mid, and hind brain. Then they are having further parts. So I should have to remember whenever I am, forming brain, I'll be considering that something should be there to form cerebellum, to form cerebrum, to form pons, medulla, etc., etc. Now, accept its look in primitive stage. Third point. You just initially form a rough image in your mind. I'm not saying just form an exact image of the structure in your mind, because you are not the author of the textbook. So you just imagine how it can look like in its development stage. When you accept all these 3 facts, that what to form, recalling its gross structure, accepting the look it's in primitive stage, now have an initial look on diagram with meaning of all the terms. Just see the terms and try to get the significance of all the terms. When you do the significance, like why the groove is written, why the tube is written, why the cardiogenic word is written, you will at last, when you relook at the whole diagram again, when you see the whole diagram, you will easily learn the process. There is nothing new. It is just a play going on. Like we have to form this, we have cushion for this, for bud for this, and tube for this. Recommendations for embryology are the best. Even our professors are using in their lectures the diagrams of Dr. Vishram Singh's textbook. Another one is Life in the Womb, Dr. Rose Xavier, both textbook as well as YouTube videos. I have personally attended ma'am's lecture and they're brilliant. Coming to radiological anatomy, which is something like students neglect and they don't even remember, just they recall it at the time of examinations. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to purchase even books for this. You just have to use your knowledge. Whatever you have studied in gross, just apply your knowledge over here. Something concepts you have to make for your future, for second, third, fourth year, etc. For first year, only normal radiological findings you have to know. And you can keep in mind some probable abnormal findings, like in upper limb and lower limb X-ray, most probably some fractures will be there, or like soft tissue injuries will be there. Just keep in mind, but I'm not saying that remember whole, because every disease has some specific findings and you cannot learn at first year. So just normal radiological findings. Second thing is, you have to, when you are seeing an X-ray, you just see how dark or intensified the shadow of a bone is, how the shadow is different from the cartilage shadow, then from soft tissues, gas and fluid. So just try to catch the shadows. For thorax and skull, I would suggest these have a different approach to study. Like in thorax, there are two views: PA view and AP view. And in skull also there are four to five types of views. So just learn the types of views. What are the findings in those particular kind of views, and the important and exclusive findings. Like you cannot see all the sinuses. Sometimes you cannot see sphenoid sinuses on all the X-rays of the brain. So you should know which X-ray depicts the best or demonstrate best the sphenoid sinus. For next thing is abdomen. For abdomen, there are lots of special X-rays in abdomen for different organs or tissues, like ascending pylography, descending pylography, hysterosalpingography. You just have to know why we are using them, what's the target or what's to see in this, and what is the extent we can go to find some abnormal findings in this. And the last thing is, sometimes the external may ask the solutions, dyes or drugs using administered to have these X-rays. Now coming to one of the toughest and favorite part of memers is histology. So histology is every time you just listen like it's blue, it's something purple and pink, but it's not. Now you have to explore this purple and pink. So for again, I must say, first of all, do the general and then go to systemic. So in general, what is the basic rule of histology is in first year and even in histopathology in second year also, you just have to stay focused on diagrams and labelings only. Otherwise, text is so complicated, you cannot remember everything. So best thing is remember what you can carry up to last year and even up to your PG entrance examination. So diagram, besides the diagram and labeling, there are two major fields in general histology and one major field in the systemic histology. In general, you have to know the very accurate shape of the basic cells. How does a simple squamous epithelium look like? Now you have to study and summarize the whole chapter of general. First is to know the accurate shape of basic cells. Second one is to summarize all the chapters of general histo. Like I am studying epithelium, I will definitely summarize that chapter in 4 headings. What are the types of epithelium I get in this chapter? What are the locations of those epithelium? According to location, what are the functions? Or according to function, what is the location? You can, interchange this. Now, differential points of the tissue. If you're studying cartilage, then there are 3 types of cartilage. You have to differentiate between them. These are the 2 basic fields of general. Now, coming to systemic histology, there are differential points you have to explore. In systemic histology, what I'll give you the example, there are 3 tracts: GIT, urinary system, and reproductive tract. In GIT, you will find some layers: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis propria, and serosa. Similar will be in urinary tract. Similarly, you will be finding in vas deferens also of reproductive tract. So you have to know the difference between, you have to know the similarity, but what you have to focus is on the difference. Difference within the tracts, like GIT, inside the GIT also, there is difference. Duodenum is called duodenum and jejunum is called jejunum. There is a reason. Otherwise, both are the part of intestine. They're microscopically different. So first know the difference within the tract, and second, dissimilar tracts, but similar in some features. Like urinary system, tract is completely different. It's a urinary tract, but you have to get the similarities. Important tips I would like to suggest in histo: always HNE pencils. Others when needed, like brown pencil for choroid epithelium in eye and like hair follicles in skin. Second, you have to form your own tricks to learn the basic rules of histology. Like I have made my tricks. Whenever there will be adventitia, whether it is in blood vessel, whether it is in trachea, whether it is in GIT, urinary system, or vas deferens, adventitia is always an outer protective layer. So you just have to know protective layer should be dense and strong and compact. So here only the filling tissue will be dense connective tissue. Otherwise, whenever the connective tissue will be inside any organ, it will always be loose connective tissue, right? And like submucosa, glands are always in submucosa, as you can explore in GIT. Learn exclusive key points, as I told you. Coming to 5th point, draw less but accurate shape. This is trick for exam. You can draw less. You don't have to draw hundreds of cells. You just draw accurate shape of cells, the required cells and the proper labelings, and just finish it off. You'll get equal marks. Don't need to show whole section, and just focus on basement membrane and have a correct look of them. Highlight extra points for Viva. how to study and learn histology. Whenever you start a chapter, you should follow this series just like embryology. What the tissue is, what the tissue is. Like I am giving example, the tissue is urinary bladder. Its function and relate it with cell shape. Now, immediately when I click urinary bladder, I should know always urothelium or transitional epithelium should be there. So why the transitional epithelium is transitional epithelium? So second point is get its function and relate it with cell shape. Urinary bladder has urine. So whenever this urine will pressure the bladder wall, there should be something to compensate this, show some transition effect so that the bladder could, bear the pressure of this urinary pressure. So for this, God has made transitional epithelium. Transitional epithelium is what? The dome-shaped cells are there at the top. So these dome-shaped cells are like, these will get flat when, transition. They exhibit transition. That's why I named transitional epithelium. They will get flat whenever the pressure is there. They will regain their shape when the pressure is not there. So you have to relate it with function and why the cell shape is like this. You have to relate. Now, third trip is recall its gross feature. I am studying urinary bladder. I am recalling the detrusor muscle, which is a urinary bladder is a highly muscular organ, just like tongue. So whenever there will be highly muscular organ, just form a trick that there will be 3 sets of muscle fibers: longitudinal, transverse, and oblique. So same in urinary bladder also. In muscularis propria, you will find all the 3 layers, all the 3 arrangement of the muscle fibers: transverse, longitudinal, and oblique. So compare this handmade diagram with your gross features, whatever you have recalled. Now find exclusive findings of a tissue. As I told you, you have to remember what is exclusive in this tissue. Now relook the whole diagram and compare with the real microscopic images immediately. Otherwise, you will forget. You will just remember the bookish diagram, and when it comes to slide identification, you'll forget. Right? Now coming to the slide identification tips, that is very important, for your practical point of view. Every university is giving 2 types of slide identification. First, in your spotting, around 2 to 3 slides. And second one, as a histology viva, they will provide you 2 to 3 slides, and you have to find and give viva to the external for that. So definitely you have to know everything if you have to give a good viva and secure best marks in it. So prerequisite knowledge for you people is that you should, at the time of slide identification, you should learn 1 to 3 exclusively identifying features. Like immediately when I see a glomerulus, it is kidney, and glomerulus has a very beautiful recognition in these slides. So you can easily remember. So keep in mind differentials also. Now, what are the series you have to, whenever you are standing on a spot of slide, now, just first see the question asked. Don't see microscope and don't search for anything in microscope. Just first read the question asked and see accordingly. Whatever is asked, see accordingly. Now focus on if the question is identify the slide only, so you have to focus on first of all nucleus. Mind my words, first of all nucleus only. Whatever kind of nucleus you are seeing in the slide, just see nucleus and trace surrounding it the basement membrane, which will always be little dark pink, right? So you have to trace this little dark pink color. So focus on first of all nuclei, then see basement membrane, then cell. Immediately when you trace nuclei and basement membrane, you will come to know the cell margins and something you can find some shape of cells, and then you will recognize that it may be this cell. And then you will study, you'll just see the arrangement of pattern as in muscles, right? In skeletal and smooth muscles, arrangement and pattern is also important. Now see the surrounding tissues. As the rule of Dr. Sushruth Bose, role of 9 quadrants should be there. You have to explore all the 9 quadrants of a slide in all directions and find what are the things present. Here is an example of trachea. If you will just see pseudostratified epithelium, you will just write the respiratory or pseudostratified epithelium in your answer. And you will leave seeing the hyaline cartilage over here if you will not explore all the 9 quadrants. So when you see that something cartilaginous is also there, some respiratory epithelium material is also there, lamina propria is also there, then immediately you will form an initial opinion that it may be trachea. Now tally the other features. If you are forming an initial confirmation or initial opinion, now tally other features and keep in mind the differentials. Always keep differentiating that it may be this, it may not be this. Immediately you have to do. Now identify the slide which is your final confirmation or opinion. So boss,
so I have a question for the audience. Can you please identify this slide? You can put your answers in the chat box. No responses yet.
That's a tough task.
Esophagus, pylorus, ileum, uterus. Wow. So yeah, we have enough of responses. So this is actually a slide of gastroesophageal junction. So this slide was specifically shown so that I can demonstrate you how to use the rule of 9 quadrants. So just let me begin with, there are two types of questions in histology. First is a short slide where you are just given 1 minute. You have already pointed what you have to identify and you have to identify the spot. That's it. Second is a long slide where you have time to analyze, draw the diagram and face viva for the same questions. And how can you avoid making a mistake is to follow the rule of 9. So divide this slide into 9 quadrants. It's a 3x3 table and look at all 9 boxes individually. In this slide, if you look, the left side shows histology of esophagus, while the right side shows the histology of stomach. So that is why this slide, if you want to score perfectly, should be labeled as gastroesophageal junction. This is how you apply the rule of 9 quadrants. Next, to train yourselves in identifying slides, I do recommend a few sources. First is Blue Histology Quiz by University of Western Australia. It allows you to take a quiz at any point of time, even without using a microscope. I wish I had this in my days. And Gurudat will tell you about a few more resources.
Yeah, histogram app you can find useful there, though there are some errors in the app. But you know, for the correlation point of view, like I told you to differentiate between similar and dissimilar tracks, you can study everything over at a single place. So I'm recommending this app. Also, my YouTube channel, Medico Peers, we have uploaded videos of neuroanatomy and also histology. This is lecture 2, and we will cover histology, whole histology in 4 lectures. If you wish, you can subscribe. Now, I'll be talking about something that is very significant and very important for exclusively for 2019 batch now. Because from now onwards, the pattern is completely changed, and because of this new curriculum, right? I'm the member of curriculum committee also. So I would like to tell you more about this, that the new curriculum has changed your examination pattern, the way of asking questions, your question paper pattern also, right? And besides the type of question they can frame for you people. Similarly, we can find this in NEET PG also. If it will be NEET PG or any XT, whatever, now they are focusing more on the clinical based questions only. Even for anatomy also, they are focusing the clinical approaches. So as an Indian medical graduate, which you people are going to be, you have to be thorough with 5 qualities. Like you should be a good clinician, communicator, team leader, professional, and a lifelong learner. For this, you need knowledge, skills, attitude, values, responsiveness, and obviously having a good communication with your patients, with your colleagues, with everyone, right? So why I'm showing you this is, there is something I have extracted from this. The part is the integration part, which may or may not be running in colleges, but your question paper will be totally based on this also, right? Especially the MCQ questions, which are now going to come in your university examinations. This is integration, but the MCI has defined the integration into the inter-subject integration. And what is intra-subject is something I have added. Like I am showing the example of my university, National Institute of Medical Sciences and Research. There are total 11 topics assigned to every college for integration in first year. Firstly, we have taken anemia. Our curriculum committee has taken anemia, and 5 departments are going to integrate into this. Biochem will tell the heme metabolism and all. Physiology will tell the normal mechanisms of these cells and all, right? Medicine will tell the management, pathology will tell the pathogenesis, and pharmacology will tell the treatment part, the drugs part of this. Besides this, now the questions which you will find clinically are like, I have a question for you people. First of all, you should answer then after I'll tell you. So in dissection hall, have you ever studied femoral hernia and its course by taking hip bone? Have anybody did this? No. I did it. I did this at when I was in first year in DH. What we people do now, you have to change your approach of studying the things. When we were having hip bones in our hand, and we have studied something about femoral hernia. We were not much thorough about it, and course was looking like, what is this? Something dangerous. But then when we imagined where should be inguinal ligament on that hip bone, how should the hernia get strangulated in between and all. So when you study integrated inside the subject, college is teaching inter-subject. You have to study by yourself intra-subject integration also. So most of the answers were no. Now change your pattern of study now.
One of the answers is no hip bone due to lockdown.
I can understand. Even they are showing on Zoom videos the demonstration of the bones, and it's not practically possible to learn by videos. So next thing, but whenever you do, not just for anatomy, for even next year subjects also, you have to follow the same pattern. Something is being taught in practical, just try to cover the theory part also there. Now, this is a very important aspect, and I think many of the students might be curious about this. The assessment pattern of 2019 batch, which is totally changed from our pattern, boss, as you can see. So the same thing is the 75% attendance criteria that will not be going to change, but otherwise the total marks are only 200 as earlier. I will start with internal assessments first, because there are major changes in the internal assessment. We were having 20% weightage at our time. Now there is no weightage of internal assessment in the final 200 marks. We were having 40 marks out of 200 for internals, but now they are not giving any privilege of the internals. So internal are now just an eligibility criteria for the examinations. You have to just qualify your internals, and if you are but the thing is that if you don't qualify your internals criteria, you will definitely not be allowed by your college to sit in the university examinations. So it's a kind of hurdle you have to cross now. So now only an eligibility criteria. Marks will be displayed on your mark sheet, but it will be not added to the final total of the 200 marks, right? What is the qualifying criteria? There are two criteria. First of all, aggregately 50% in both theory and practical. If internal is of 100 marks, 50 of theory and 50 of practical, you have to score 50 out of 100 to get qualified. Second criteria is also there, which can fail you. If you haven't got around 40% marks individually in theory and practical. If theory is 50 marks and you haven't secured 20 marks, you will definitely be not allowed, just on the basis of theory only. So individually also you have to qualify the internals, and aggregately also. What your internal assessment includes are the 3 assessments, which is now not possible. Only single assessment has been taken by the universities due to COVID-19, and the logbook update day to day, which is a very burden I can find on students. Now practical file completion and the other departmental activities like quizzes and all, which they can add. So this is the criteria. Coming to the very important point for you people is the university examination pattern. There will be similarly 2 papers for theory, paper 1 and paper 2, each of 50 marks, right? Out of like if paper 1 is of 50 marks, so out of those 50, now there will be 10 MCQs and 40 marks subjective questions, short answer question, long answer question, diagram based enumerate questions, right? So this kind of pattern. So 10 marks are MCQs, and your integrated approach, which I have told you, will work here in the MCQs, because they will ask the MCQs based on clinical approaches, right? They will give you femoral, course of femoral hernia, and they will suddenly ask some question from inguinal ligament. So you have to learn like this. Second thing, practical. Practical is now practical are totally for 100 marks, including spotting and viva, right? In viva, 4 fields are there for viva: soft part, hard part, radio, and histology. So in histology, as I told you, slides will be there. And spotting tips we'll be sharing soon in this webinar. What is the qualifying criteria in your university examinations is, in paper 1 and 2, in both paper 1 and 2, you have to secure 50% marks aggregately. And individually, if I'm talking, if paper 1 is of 50 marks, again, individually, you have to pass in paper 1 also with 40% marks, and in paper 2 also. Otherwise, also you will be declared fail. So sharing some spotting tips, what is the focus during spottings? A spot is put over there on DH tables, and you just suddenly get confused what to do. don't do this. There is a 1 minute timing, and mostly universities follow, most of the universities follows the 1 minute timing. The focus should be to utilize this 1 minute, because in this single minute, you have to do 4 to 5 things. You have to go to your spot, you have to see the question answer, you have to see the spot, you have to think, you have to present the answer, and also in last 2-3 seconds, you have to run on another spot also. So you have to work in a single minute a lot, right? So without losing time and marks, what should be the strategy? First of all, never ever see the spot. If you can see on the screen, Alna is there, and there is some pink mark. What we people do the mistake is that we just we just see the pink mark and start writing by our own. We don't see the question asked, right? Sometimes it happens that you don't have any, you don't even have to see the spot. Like in clavicle, if they're asking write down 4 peculiar features, and clavicle bone is there at the side for the spotting. So there is no need to see clavicle now, but you people waste your time on seeing the clavicle and lose your 10 to 15 seconds, and which you can utilize for writing the answer as fast as you can. So basically, first see the spot only, and first don't see the spot, first read the questions carefully. Now see only the highlighted, whatever is being highlighted or asked in the question, just see that limited part and answer accordingly. You have to write very precise, to the point, fast, and nothing extra. Nothing extra should be added. Don't show extra knowledge over there. You just write whatever you exactly know, because you have to secure your marks also. And last 1 extra minute, most of the university gives 1 extra minute at the last to complete anything which is left over. So just check your numberings and anything left in this last minute, right? Don't try thinking that if I have left some spot, I'll finish in last minute. If you left 5 spots, how can you finish in last 1 minute? So don't do this, right? First read the question asked very carefully. There is one important tip for spotting, which is a very practical tip for you people, is that when you are writing on spot 1, but the spot 1 answer is too long and you haven't completed it. Now you have to go to spot 2. What the grand mistake we people do is, at spot 2 we are still writing the answer of spot 1, and neither we will get good marks for spot 1 also, and because of tension and anxiety, and nor you will get the marks for spot 2 also, because you haven't seen the spot, and if the bell rings you have to reach spot 3 also. So don't do that. If time over but spot 1 is not completed, leave space and move at spot 2. And at present at the spot where you are standing, just do that spot and leave space for the last spot, and do it whenever you get time. And how will you get time? I will give you an example. Like there is patella bone, and in patella bone 2 questions are mostly as what is the bone and the type of bone. So you have to just write simply patella and second sesamoid bone. So you can do this in 10 to 15 seconds only. So you are saving your around 30 to 40 seconds in this spot. So whenever you have left some spot, finish it in the spot where you are securing your time. Now we are starting with very, very important aspect, that is the paper writing tips. So requirements, as you can see my examination kit picture on screen, there should be 2 pens. Don't write with colored pens, always use black and blue pen. And I prefer gel blue pen over the ball because it gives neatness. Now, second is the basic tools, as you know. For gross diagrams, use whatever you are comfortable and you can draw fast, like colored pens, pencils, or crayons. For histology, H&E pencils, and important thing, compass. Otherwise, you will ask from your batchmates. So what I would like. Yeah.
Most of our audience's exam going first MBBS batch, we have divided a separate session on this about how to go writing with paper of anatomy. So the first thing that we want to talk about is time distribution. Often students complain that anatomy is a lengthy paper, we were not able to complete it, especially anat paper 2 or those including abdo, neuroanat. So what I do is recommend is to divide the paper into sections and decide prefix the timing for SAQ and LAQ. Like I used to decide if there are this number of SAQs, I have to answer in this amount of time. I am going to finish one SAQ in 10 minutes, that's it. I'm going to finish an LAQ in 20 minutes, that's it. And accordingly, I used to write. Now in that 10 minutes, I have to write more than average within the time. And yes, you always have to keep some buffer time, 5 to 10 minutes for casualties. So don't keep your time schedule for the paper as the entire amount of time. Leave 10 minutes buffer time for casualties. Like there are examples when you get a LAQ type of question as a SAQ. So you need to put some time for these questions as well. And yes, again, if you have some extra time left, you can use it for extra marks. Like you can just add some diagrams, you can add some clinical points, applied anatomy points. Coming to the length distribution, never let it be the first criteria. The first criteria, you're not going to be how lengthy you write. Quality matters over the quantity. So what I usually recommend is, on an average, 1 page, that is 2 sides, is enough for a SAQ, and 2 to 3 pages, that is 4 to 6 sides, is enough for a LAQ. Given that quality is good. And yes, presentation matters more than length. So coming to the diagrams, an image conveys more information than text. Try to draw more flowcharts and diagrams. For that, you need to practice. Use colored pencils and not pens for gross anat, and HNE pencils for histo. Cross orientation of image pointing is very essential, as you have in map, north, south. Similarly, you need to put medial versus lateral, anterior versus posterior, superior versus inferior. Keep the images simplified, accurate, large, clear, and well explainable. Draw labeling under same heading or subheading at the same site. And yes, this is going to save your time. No need to repeat the whatever you have already drawn again into the text. So this will save your time and also give you the necessary marks. And especially if you have low speed of drawing, then you may prefer to use directly colored pencils. So Gurudutt would like to talk more about facial nerve.
Yeah, you can see the diagram of facial nerve from Dr. Vishram Singh's textbook of neuroanatomy. So by this diagram, I just like to show you people that how you have to select your diagrams for examination. Like this is the diagram of facial nerve. It is covering everything from the origin, course, distribution, and all the branches of the facial nerve. Right. So these kind of diagrams are, first of all, you can remember by concepts, and in upcoming years also you will remember all these things, right, by the diagram. Secondly, you have to write less, and when you draw a diagram, you will definitely get extra marks for this. So basically, select the diagrams like this. Now it's a question for you people. Just keep answers in the chat box. We'll discuss later after presenting the answer sheet presentation. So you have to write a short note on femoral artery. Unfortunately, you people are unable to recall its all relations except the anterior ones. In examination, you forgot all the relations of femoral artery except the anterior ones. So what would be your strategy now? Would you skip writing that answer, the heading relations? Would you skip writing the heading relation because you don't know anything extra? And if you write only anterior relations and will not write posterior, lateral, and medial, you will lose marks definitely because external will catch you. So we'll discuss this, interesting approach. Keep the answers in the chat box. Starting with the answer sheet presentation, we'll discuss this after that. So answer sheet presentation, I'm showing you an ideal answer sheet look. So have a look at it. This is my answer sheet, my way of presenting answer sheet in my university examination, right? So first of all, a very minor thing, but very important, which gives impression to your answer sheet everywhere in internal examinations for every subject also, right? Whenever you're writing your details, it should look like a professional person is writing this. It should be something standard. So everyone will recognize you by, first of all, your name, then with your badge, then with your roll number. So never write your roll number at starting, right? So follow the series which we are following in the practical time. So write your name, then batch, then roll number, then date and day, and the subject, anatomy, like, for example. Now put a line and write the name of examination. It gives a good impression. MBBS Post Professional University Examinations. One important thing I should tell this before, that you have to make margins on your pages at the sides of your pages. So never make these margins or these scaling, not more than 3 centimeter or not less than 3 centimeter. If you are doing it less than 3 centimeter, it will look like something bad. And if you do more than 3 centimeter, external will think like you are going to make him fool just by reducing the area for writing and increasing the text automatically. So have a standard of scaling in your answer sheets. Next thing is you can easily do the long answer questions. As you can see on the screen and follow the cursor, if it's a long answer question, you will write ans dot 1 here, answer 1 here. But when it's a question with 4 sub questions, question number 1 with 4 sub question, don't write it over there. External might get confused in your answers, right? So don't write it over there. Write at the top here. So write answer 1 heading, then do all the 4 parts of these questions. First of all is like rotator cuff. Write everything about it in short and precise manner and very best content. Now draw the diagram also if you can. And if you are showing something in diagram, don't write in the text also. Something important I am sharing is always leave, whether it's a long question or whether it's a part of a question, sub question, always leave 3 adequate lines, 3 lines after every answer. This is 1, 2 and 3. The reason is when in some questions you forget to write many things, and at last when you remember that you know this, but you will find that you don't have any space to write now. So keep this space, and when you think that it's nothing to write over here, just close this with a single pencil line, right? So this is a very exclusive tip you people should know, that always leave 3 lines after every answer as a backup, right? So next thing is as already wrote, you have to use the proper numberings and bullets. Like if you're writing heading with capital A, never repeat it in the subheadings and never repeat in subheadings, right? Mostly in subheadings we do this mistake, right? And next thing is like I am showing this with cubital fossa, second image, cubital fossa. The same thing Sushruth boss has told. Like if you have drawn something on diagram, just label all the contents with similar heading over a single place. Like I will label all the parts of roof over a single place, and above them I will write roof. Similarly, I will do for content. Similarly, I will do for flow. So now the same thing which you were going to write in your text, you will be saving your time here. Don't do that. How can you make it? I already told you. Boss, subheadings, I would like you should tell them.
Yeah, so as we already mentioned, first impression is the last impression. Scaling you have already mentioned. Regarding exam name and section number, I am not sure if all universities allow. Like our university won't allow the answer sheet is to be submitted anonymously. Subheadings, yes, for gross anatomy, you always need to add subheadings like intro, then gross features, parts, relations, and in one line, in like 7 to 8 words, even if not asked, just in 7 to 8 words, describe what is the embryology and histology of that organ. It is like a cherry on the cake. Then you have arterial supply, venous supply, nervous supply, lymphatic drainage, and 2 points of clinical or applied anatomy. And yes, I always used to do LAQ. You have to use 1 to 2 diagrams, and SAQ, wherever possible, try to draw 1 diagram. Yeah, that's it. So next part is that about
you have
applied
to
anatomy. We will try to write at least 1 point of applied anatomy in each answer if you are looking for a distinction. So with this, we conclude the points that we want to make. We have covered each of the individual topics, and Gurudutt will also give if anything he wants to add.
Yeah. The one thing I have asked the question to the audience. Many people are saying that they will skip writing. Others are saying that they will draw diagram. But diagram for what? If you know the diagram, you must be knowing all the relations, and you cannot draw only the anterior relations, right? I understand when you know nothing, you have to do something. At least do something. But what my strategy was, I will show you in the slides only. Like see the last point of this slide. If unable to recall maximum content of any heading, you can make a new heading. Just leave the heading relations, right? Because you will be getting cached by the external. So don't do that. Just make a new heading and name it as like special points or points to remember or facts or something else. And secretly present your knowledge there, whatever you know. So this is something interesting tip I'm sharing with you. Thank you very much. We have concluded all our tips and tricks. I hope you people have enjoyed this.
So we can move ahead to the Q&A round, Mehak.
Yeah, thank you, Sushrut and Gurudev. I'm sure the students have gained a lot from this fruitful session. So now moving onwards to our question and answer round, we have a lot of questions to be answered here, but let's see how many we can answer given the crunch of time. So the first question is, share some tips about objective way of learning anatomy for NEET or next exam.
So I would like to start with the basic filter that I already told, like use of a highlighter. So I used to highlight the keywords, the exceptions, the clinical syndromes, the eponyms. So these usually are the objective questions that are asked in MCQs and also in quizzes. Like even if NEET, they will ask you all of these are contents of cubital fossa except. So then this is something except. So these are the exceptions that you need to remember. And use of the highlighter is the most important thing that I recommend. Second thing is about regarding using MCQ book. I do not really recommend it to use it in the first MBBS year itself, because you have a lot of textbook data to be read, and I just wish that you stick to the concepts in the first MBBS. Do not fall into the praise of MCQ books right now.
So moving on to our next question, that is, should we add clinical points to histology notes?
Yeah, you can add clinical points. Like if you are studying the, if you are studying the squamous cell, simple squamous cell, or you are studying stratified squamous epithelium, just if you can get some source like what could be the correlating thing, like in second year you have squamous cell carcinoma, you will see stratified squamous epithelium in the dermoid cyst also. So you don't know these terms. If you can learn at this time, you should add.
Okay, moving to our next question. Can you share some tricks about which relations to remember, especially for head, neck, and abdomen?
For head and neck and abdomen, talking about relations in abdomen, there are lots of relations, I understand. And even I asked Sushrut boss to present something about abdomen relations, then I'll continue.
Yeah, so whenever I just said like anatomy is like going from geography. So whenever you want to know a position of any point, you always need to have those directions. What is anterior, what is posterior, medial, lateral, superior, and inferior. So if you want to find a particular spot or want to describe a particular structure, you just need to mention a landmark and its relation. Like the so and so structure is anterior to so and so landmark. So it is not about remembering all the course. It is just about remembering the landmarks and describing the course in terms of position to the landmark.
You can learn maximum if you can, but same thing, the main point is that whatever you can learn and is the basic landmark of that structure, you have to follow that only.
Okay, so this is a very situational based question, which says amidst COVID-19, if we have a MCQ based online examination, what should be our strategy of learning and facing the exams?
I think they'll be lenient in examinations, as they also know that students are suffering. Everyone is suffering from this pandemic, but we cannot expect everything from MCI that they will be totally lenient. So mostly the topics which they were going to give you important topics of theory examinations. Similarly, they'll give questions in MCQs also.
And as already mentioned, if you have already highlighted the exceptions, clinical syndromes, and all those things that I have already mentioned, those are the MCQ questions itself. They're not going to ask anything different.
Okay, moving on to our next question. Please suggest some good sources and names for atlas and flashcards.
My personal favorite is Netters. because it is not exactly a computerized atlas, because Netter has sometimes manipulated a bit of images for a better understanding. So my personal favorite is Netter's.
Netter's is best.
Okay, the next question is, can you share some tips? How can we remember which muscle is in which compartment? It's always very confusing.
So first of all, you always need to know the count. You need to know the number of muscles in each compartment. And as the second thing is, after you know the count, you need to create a visual memory, as in you need to create a mind palace. So you do not need to remember the names. Like you should not like the number of muscles in this so and so compartment. When you are going to say ki anterior compartment of hand, so you just have to imagine it, and the muscles should be depicted, and they should be coming in directly into you should be able to project the image. And once you are able to project that image, then you have to name them, and for that your vocabulary has to be good. That is the only thing I used to do, and it has worked quite well with me.
I'll add up the same thing, that when you come to know the tricks which have been shared in this webinar, that you have to learn the muscles by their names. You'll automatically learn. If you can see your hand, if you can see my screen, tap on my screen and see my hand. If you are going to learn where should be, abductor pollicis longus where it should be located, you know that it's the muscle of anatomical snuff box. But why it's laterally only? Here it's medially, but when you see, you feel like it's laterally. So why it's here only? Because the abduction of thumb can occur in this direction only. Median plane is finger, so you can abduct in this direction only. So it should always be here to contract and give its function, right? So follow the conceptual tricks also.
And it is not that difficult to remember the names. You just have to understand the English meaning of it. So latissimus dorsi, as you already mentioned, the largest muscle of the back. So that's it. If you are seeing it, you are seeing the largest muscle. There's nothing to remember about it.
Exactly.
Okay, we are just taking the last question of the session now, which is, we have practicals online and dissections are difficult to learn this way. What are some ways to learn dissection or prepare for vivas in a better way?
The first resource that I want to mention is the Viva Voce Anatomy. It has already dissected specimens, and you can go through the videos repeatedly. And I have already mentioned the other neuroanatomy related structures as well, the one ECC LES. Then you have WebPath Neuroanatomy. Then you will also find a few other less recommended resources on YouTube. And I would recommend that you go through them. That would be the most useful. And yes, Atlas along with text.
Yeah.
Gurudev, anything to add?
Nothing. We can't do anything in practicals right now because no one
Yeah,
can
I
go
think
college.
those videos would suffice.
Yeah. Even videos are not sufficient. We have to anyhow see the practical things at our own.
Okay, so we have come towards the end of the session. I would like both of you to give some concluding remarks to our students. So Shruth?
Yeah, so to summarize the anatomy, two secrets: fix your vocabulary, learn Latin and Greek, be well versed with the terms, anatomy will be at your hand. Second, answer in the Viva, create a visual memory palace, project it in front of you, and try to recall the function. The function is so and so, that is why the muscle is named so and so. That's it.
And the same thing, you have to form your conceptual tricks in the subject, because at the end, like I remember anatomy at my third year also, but most of the students of second year even don't remember the anatomy. The reason is because we are not studying by concepts. We are just doing the rectification. Don't do that. Make some tips and tricks, as we have shared our tips and tricks. We don't know that someday you people will be there at our at our place, and you'll be demonstrating some new tips. Even we can learn from you. So form your own tips and tricks, and we just want you people to perform best in your examinations. Thank you.
Thank you both for this very insightful session. I'm sure the students are really happy with the tips and tricks that they have received today. So students, please note that the participation certificate would be shared with you through an email in a few days, and also we would be sharing the recording along with the same. Thank you everyone for joining today's session. Have a good day ahead. Thank you.
And my
Speakers.
last
Yeah.
thanks, my last thanks to Team Elsevier, who is conducting all the webinars for the students. Especially they know the they know the pulse of the student, that what the student needs at which time. So I would like to tell all the students, get enrolled into any kind of activity which Elsevier is sharing you people, because I have explored so much after joining this organization. And Sushruth boss is already the master of this organization. Mehak ma'am and all the team members are supporting us. Like, they have the practice session, and also we're enough thankful to them also for bringing up some changes in us. I am presenting this webinar as a host for the first time with a huge gathering. I have done anchoring, but not like this. So there are a lot of opportunities, and you people have to grab it. Thank you, Team Elsevier.
Yes, I would like to thank you to the team Elsevier, Mehak, Priyanka, and all the seniors above for providing me this opportunity to guide the first MBBS students. It has always been a journey, long journey. Actually, every year I get some opportunity, and I hope to look at the next opportunity very soon. Thank you.
Same.
Thank you, both of you, for your kind words. So we are ending our session now. And thank you, everybody, for joining in. Have a great day. Thank you, Sushruth. Thank you, Gurudev.
Thank you.
Thank you.